There is a voice inside your head. It may be reading these words right now. It does not need a mouth. It does not move the air. Nobody standing next to you can hear it, but you can. It reminds you what you need to do. It rehearses conversations that have not happened yet. It returns to conversations that ended years ago and invents better things you could have said. Sometimes it encourages you, sometimes it criticizes you, sometimes it argues with itself. And because it has been with you for so long, you probably do not question it very often. But what exactly is that voice? Where did it come from? Why does it sound like you? And when it says something you did not choose to think, is it still really you speaking? Try something for a moment. Without moving your lips, quietly say your own name inside your mind. Now imagine saying it more slowly. Now imagine someone else saying it. You did not produce a real sound, but something inside you changed. The name had a rhythm. It may have had a tone. You may even have imagined a voice that did not belong to you. Your brain created the experience of speech without actually speaking. Scientists usually call this inner speech. Most people call it their inner voice, internal monologue, or the voice in their head. But calling it a voice can be misleading. For many people, it does not sound exactly like someone speaking through a pair of headphones. It may not have a clear volume, location, accent, or pitch. It can feel more like the idea of a voice. You know what is being said, even when you cannot describe what it sounds like. Sometimes the words arrive as complete sentences. Sometimes they appear as fragments. Do not forget, why did I say that? I need to leave soon. Sometimes an entire thought seems to pass through your mind faster than you could ever say it out loud. That is because inner speech is not simply ordinary speech with the volume turned off. It is a compressed form of language that your brain can expand or shorten depending on what you need. When you're imagining an important conversation, the voice may become detailed. You picture the other person. You imagine what they might say. You prepare your answer. You change their response. You start the conversation again. But when you're doing something familiar, the voice may shrink into instructions that barely resemble sentences. Phone, keys, wallet, door. The meaning is still there even when most of the grammar disappears. To understand why your brain does this, it helps to watch how children think. Young children often speak to themselves out loud. A child building something may say, "This piece goes here." "No, not there. I need the blue one." A child searching for a toy may narrate the entire process. Adults sometimes assume the child is trying to communicate with someone else. But often, the child is using language to control their own attention and behavior. They are not only describing what they are doing, they are guiding themselves through it. As children grow older, much of this self-directed speech becomes quieter. The lips stop moving. The words move inward. The conversation that once happened between a child and the people around them gradually becomes a conversation the child can continue alone. The instructions once spoken by parents, teachers, and caregivers become part of the child's internal world. Slow down. Be careful, try again, think before you act. Over time, some of these words lose their original speaker. They no longer feel like something another person told you. They feel like your own thoughts. This means the voice inside your head may have started as many voices. It contains pieces of conversations, corrections, encouragement, warnings, stories, rules, and reactions collected throughout your life. The voice feels personal because your brain has made it personal. It has taken language from the outside world and turned it into a tool for navigating the world inside you. That tool can be extremely useful. Imagine someone gives you a phone number and you cannot write it down. You may repeat the numbers silently until you can use them. Imagine entering a room and forgetting why you walked in. You may retrace your steps while telling yourself, "I was going to get something. I came from the kitchen. I needed a glass." Imagine preparing for a difficult conversation. Your inner voice creates a small simulation. It predicts questions, tests explanations, and searches for words that might protect you from embarrassment or misunderstanding. Inner speech can help with memory, planning, reading, problem-solving, motivation, and self-control. It allows you to give yourself instructions without anyone else hearing them. In a way, the speaker and the listener are both you, but they are not always playing the same role. Sometimes the voice sounds like a narrator. "I'm getting nervous." Sometimes it sounds like a coach. "Stay calm, you know what to do." Sometimes it sounds like a judge. "You should have done better." Sometimes it becomes a second person inside the conversation. "You always do this." That small change from I to you can make the voice feel strangely separate. You are no longer simply experiencing a thought, you're being addressed by it. This is one reason the inner voice can feel like another person, even when you know it comes from your own mind. The brain is capable of creating both sides of a conversation. You can ask yourself a question and then wait for an answer. You can disagree with your first reaction. You can tell yourself to stop thinking about something, only for another part of you to continue. It can feel like there are multiple versions of you sitting around the same table. One wants to take the risk. Another wants to stay safe. One wants to send the message. Another remembers what happened last time. One says, "Everything will be fine." Another begins listing every possible disaster. This does not mean there are literally separate people living inside your mind. It means the brain can represent different goals, fears, memories, and possibilities using different points of view. Language gives those competing forces a way to speak. The experience is created by networks involved in producing, understanding, predicting, and monitoring speech. When you speak out loud, your brain does not wait to hear your voice before recognizing it as your own. It predicts the sound you're about to make. A similar process appears to happen during inner speech. Your brain prepares part of the pattern of speaking while also recognizing that the experience was generated internally. This helps explain why your inner voice usually feels different from a voice coming from the room around you. You do not normally look behind you to find out who said it. It came from inside. But the voice is not exactly the same for everyone. Some people experience a nearly continuous internal monologue. Their day comes with narration, commentary, imaginary conversations, explanations, arguments, and reminders. Other people experience inner speech only during certain activities such as reading, writing, planning, or making difficult decisions. Some people think primarily through images, emotions, movement, spatial relationships, or abstract ideas. They may understand something before any words appear. And some people report having little or almost no inner voice at all. Researchers have proposed the term anendophasia for the absence or near absence of inner speech. For someone with anendophasia, thinking is not empty. There can still be memory, imagination, emotion, reasoning, creativity, and self-awareness. The thoughts simply do not need to arrive as spoken sentences. A person may picture the solution. They may feel the structure of an idea. They may know what they mean without explaining it to themselves. This can be difficult for people with strong inner monologues to imagine. For them, removing the voice feels like removing thought itself. But language and thought are not identical. Words can shape thought, organize it, and make parts of it easier to hold. They are not the only form thought can take. You often know more than you can put into words. You can recognize a face without describing every feature. You can sense that something is wrong before you can explain why. You can understand the feeling of a memory that would take several paragraphs to describe. The mind does not always begin with a sentence. Sometimes, the sentence is the translation. This raises a deeper question. When the voice does appear, is it really you? The simple answer is yes. It is produced by your brain, shaped by your memories, and connected to your goals and emotions, but that answer is incomplete because you do not consciously choose every sentence it produces. You may be lying in bed when the voice suddenly returns to something embarrassing you did 10 years ago. You may be trying to relax when it starts planning tomorrow. You may be having a good day when it quietly asks whether everything is about to go wrong. The thought came from you, but it did not ask for permission. This is one of the strangest parts of consciousness. You can observe your own mind producing material you did not intentionally request. A memory appears. A sentence forms. An argument begins. Then another part of you notices it happening. The voice says, something is wrong. But another part of you can ask, is that actually true? The voice says, you're going to fail. But something else can notice that this is a prediction, not a fact. The voice says, everyone is judging you, but you can recognize the sentence as fear. Speaking through language. This is why the inner voice is not necessarily the deepest or most truthful part of you. It is a tool. It can organize reality, but it can also distort it. It can help you solve a problem, but it can also repeat the same problem for hours without moving any closer to an answer. When inner speech circles around pain without producing anything new, it becomes rumination. The mind creates the feeling of progress because words are moving, but movement is not always direction. You can replay the same conversation 50 times and still learn nothing from the 51st version. You can ask why something happened until the question becomes a room with no exit. The voice evolved as a way to guide you, but it can become trapped inside the problems it is trying to solve. It can also carry voices you absorbed from other people. A harsh inner critic may use words you once heard from a parent, teacher, partner, bully, or authority figure. After enough repetition, the original voice disappears. The judgment begins to sound like your own. You're not good enough. You always ruin things. You cannot let anyone see you fail. The thought may use your voice now, but that does not mean it began with you. Part of growing up is discovering which parts of your internal language actually belong to the person you want to become. You may not be able to stop every thought from appearing, but you can change the way you respond to it. You can replace, I am a failure with, I am having the thought that I failed. You can ask what evidence the voice is using. You can write the thought down and see whether it still sounds reasonable outside your head. You can speak to yourself with the patience you would offer someone you care about. Some people even find it helpful to use their own name. Instead of saying, I cannot handle this, they say, Mo, slow down. You only need to handle the next step. That tiny distance can change the conversation. It turns the voice from a storm you're trapped inside into something you can listen to, question, and guide, because the goal is not to destroy the inner voice. Without it, many people would lose an important tool for rehearsal, reflection, and self-control. The goal is to remember what the voice actually is. It is not an invisible person hiding inside your skull. It is not always a reliable narrator. It is not the final authority on who you are. It is your brain using language to model the world, guide behavior, predict danger, replay the past, and prepare for what might happen next. Sometimes it is speaking clearly, sometimes it is repeating old instructions, sometimes it is trying to protect you with fears that are no longer useful, and sometimes it is simply filling silence because silence feels unfamiliar. The strangest part may not be that there is a voice inside your head, the strangest part is that you can hear it without sound. You can answer it without speaking, you can disagree with it while knowing it belongs to you, and somewhere behind the voice, there is still an awareness listening. The voice can describe that awareness, it can question it can even claim to be it. But the moment you notice the voice speaking, something inside you has already stepped back far enough to listen. Maybe you are the speaker, maybe you are the listener, or maybe the person you call you is the constantly changing conversation between them.